We're live. I've been saying, Joel, that I love saying that lately. I feel like I'm on TV.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I hope you were able to tune in to our last session with CIR. I cannot believe that we have now come to our final session of Health Equity Week of Action. And I'm so excited to introduce our speaker here momentarily, who I believe is the perfect capstone as we look towards the future. If you have probably already heard by now, but if you're just tuning in, today's theme overall was going from reflection to reconstruction and strengthening our collective voice. So you've heard us speak over the course of the week on how what we are looking to build in the body of medicine as future clinicians is how we can come together and view our collective power in a different lens. Medicine often silos us into believing that not only do we not have power, but that we need to approach the world as an individual. And what ancient history will tell us is that nothing good, happens when you're on your own. We are made to be in community. We are made to be with one another. We are made to love one another, to take care of one another. We are made to be in touch with our humanity. And I know I might sound like a broken record, but we hope that you take away from this week that no matter what medical education wishes to mold us into, we can do our best to fight back against that mold and to remember that it is our very humanistic mold, how we were made before we even decided to be physicians. That is the reason that we will be the physicians that we dream to be. It is not, the training is the training, but the training only refines the scientific and the biological approaches. It is not the marker that makes us the most ready to care for people. And so, as we think about community, as we think about our collective strength, as we think about all that we have learned, how can we together, it is a week of action, right? How can we think through what we have learned and mobilize that into tangible change? Well, it was very clear to me that when I thought about tangible change, I thought about my friend Joel. I had the honor and privilege to call Joel a friend. Met you, now about 2 years ago, I believe.
Mhm.
Joel, actually, we first met at the Future Physicians for Change convention, which he was at for us on behalf of AMSA. He has a relationship with AMSA. But Joel he began the Committee to Protect Healthcare as the first staff person in 2019. Joel, in my eyes, practically built the committee with his historical relevance within campaign staffing, which he had done prior to joining the committee. He had worked in volunteer organizing. He had worked on campaigns as staffers. He had done strategy, fundraising, development. And then he started in 2019 at the Committee to Protect Healthcare and basically helped to build it from the ground up. He is mobilizing and organizing in action. He is a connector of people. He is a connector of ideas. And the Committee to Protect Healthcare, if you're not aware, and it's okay if you're not, you'll learn more today and you'll learn more over the course of time together, but they are a national mobilization of over 40,000 medical professionals. And each of those people are all aligned in the ideology that they want to ensure that every patient, every community member has the healthcare that they deserve. They fight for patient rights. They fight for one another's rights. And Joel is a perfect example of that. And so, before I close, I want to mention that today, something that we'll be learning, why I want us to key in, is that part of that collective strength is learning not only our separate gifts, but how we bring those gifts together. And a part of that strategy is learning how to combat medical misinformation and how to think through the ways that we are communicating and how we can best enhance those communication strategies to mobilize for both safety and impact. It is a scary world out there, as we've been talking about, and visibility can be fear-inducing, but Joel is one of the many mentors in our space that's going to help to equip us to approach visibility with that strategy and to lean into our power. So Joel, my friend, my colleague, welcome and take it away.
Thank you so much, Danya. That was a much nicer introduction than I think I deserve, but I appreciate it, and appreciate you and your team for inviting me to speak to you all today. So, like Danya mentioned, I just want to say right here at the top, I myself am not a medical professional. I do when I hop on with a physician who I've not spoken with before. They will also often address me as Dr. Bryson. I have to set I have to set the record straight at the outset. So, figured I would start there. But like Danya said, I've been working in politics for about 10 years now, and joined the Committee to Protect Healthcare in its in its nascent days. And we're just really excited to see how the movement has grown so much, both within the Committee to Protect Healthcare, but then all of the partners that we've made and cultivated along the way. In AMSA and in so many other physician groups and other patient advocacy groups along the way. And so we truly wouldn't be here today without the sort of work that we've been able to do alongside so many partners and the change that we've been able to make. So I want to start with just sort of a little bit of a level set. I think you've probably been discussing this throughout the week, but in so many ways, the fight for patient rights and the fight to ensure that everybody has the healthcare they need to thrive it's really not just a policy fight. It is so much an information fight. And the healthcare and medical professionals really sit at the center of both of those conversations. Med students all the way up to retired physicians, many of whom we work with now, sort of as their schedules have cleared and have really put their efforts into mobilizing and organizing. And so every major debate that we've got going on right now, whether it's Medicaid or the ACA tax credits or vaccines and public health infrastructure, it's really not about the legislation itself. It's about the narrative that is built around it. And in many ways, it's about trust and who the public believes more. And at this moment, medical professionals, medical students, public health experts, they're not, you all, I'm sorry to say, you're not optional participants in this conversation. And so I'm really excited to see so many folks joining this evening on a Friday night, and then all the folks who will be sort of tuning in thereafter, who are interested in doing this work now, getting engaged now to sort of build this power for the future. And the sooner you develop these skills, the more prepared you'll be, not just for the fights of today, but the fights to build long-term health equity, to ensure that folks, into the future have the care that they need to thrive. Obviously, there's so much that needs to be done now, but the fight's really only beginning. So I wanted to quickly level set, just sort of, again, the issues that we are all dealing with today, both the folks in the profession, but then patients who are just seeking out care. We just witnessed the historic cuts to Medicaid, over $1 trillion over 10 years. ACA tax credits, they've of course expired due to inaction in Congress. HHS chaos. I'm sure there's been much discussion of RFK Jr. and his antics throughout the week, so we won't linger on that too long. And then, of course, the sort of ongoing assault that we've been seeing to reproductive health care access in a post Roe v. Wade, post Dobbs decision world. And all of these are fights that we at the Committee to Protect Healthcare have been taking on. I know AMSA has been taking on in so many different ways, and really will sort of determine the course of people's ability to access care for so many years to come. And hopefully we can be a force that reverses some of this damage and then builds a stronger and better infrastructure into the future. I do want to note a couple of things. Public opinion is very much on our side. I mean, I think everybody knows that, unsurprisingly, affordability consistently ranks among top priorities for American families. Lower costs, stable coverage, predictable care. And I imagine you all want that for yourselves and your families and your patients as well. And there's a broad agreement that this system is unaffordable, yet everything that I talked about a moment ago is just putting stable care out of reach for so many families. So the challenge really that we are facing as a country, as a nation, is not convincing people that healthcare matters or that healthcare is too expensive or healthcare is broken. It's navigating sort of what happens when disinformation sort of enters the debate and how to combat it. There is an interesting example in the ACA tax credits that I think illustrates this pretty well. objectively, the expiration of these tax credits will mean higher premiums, period. Not just for the folks who were receiving those tax credits, but all across the private insurance landscape. But the ACA tax credits, as you can see here, very, very popular across the partisan divide. But as the conversation ramped up in Washington, it started to trickle down to folks across the country. You could see that the favorability of that really dropped for a huge segment of the population. It splits it out here, I believe. Yeah, MAGA supporters versus non-MAGA supporters, and folks that are sort of in this information landscape, sort of doing a heel turn on this program that was so important. So it really shows the power of the information landscape and the importance of getting out there early and doing the advocacy and doing the communications in a consistent manner to push back against that as much as possible. Obviously, there are some folks who are just going to sort of go with dear leader, and so, but there are a lot of folks who that we can still talk to and are looking for some guidance. So what does it take to combat disinformation at scale? And this is something that we think about all the time. It's very much the thesis of the Committee to Protect Healthcare, and has what has driven us to build this network of 40,000 physicians and other medical professionals. It's really three things: year-round nationwide organizing, so that we as an organized force are prepared with culturally competent communicators for every community. Whether that's a deep red area, deep blue area, a purple area, whatever it may be, having the voices that really reflect the communities in which the communities that they serve, and can be really strong advocates on behalf of them. And then being prepared to do rapid response to capitalize on whatever the media moment may be. We know the media cycle, it moves so quickly. I think, the Casey Means hearing a couple of days ago is sort of already forgotten in the swirl of everything else that's going on, even though that to folks who are working in public health is incredibly concerning. And so being ready to sort of capitalize on the moment, right when it's happening, making sure that you're getting into the media cycle and winning the day. And then finally, mass mobilization is really central to show consensus from a trusted group of sort of broadly believed well-meaning individuals, medical professionals, the folks that want to care for people and serve their communities, showing that consensus across the profession is so vital to winning the day in messaging. I wanted to just quickly sort of show the scale of what we've built. These are just a couple of data points, but we've been working with physicians all across the country, across all 50 states. Over 100,000 actions, individual actions taken by that network to date. And we've really sort of historically focused and built an infrastructure for earned media communications, for better or worse. We'll get into that in a moment and sort of how the landscape is changing. But we've had really great success getting physicians trained up on being the best communicators they can be, knowing what messages are working and when they work and who they work with, and then getting that out onto the airwaves in their white coats, this sort of $414 million value. That's essentially a number that reflects, like, if you were to pay to do paid advertising to get this much coverage, you would have to pay that amount of money. So sort of value going back into the organization through just the earned communications that we are getting out there, and value of sort of this message getting out there on whatever it may be. I wanted to quickly just dive into a story of a physician that we've been working with now for several years, and sort of her journey with advocacy through the Committee to Protect Healthcare. And I think it reflects sort of the journey that a lot of folks have taken. And you'll note that it's in Dr. Sui's case, who I'll share a bit about in a moment. I believe it wasn't until her mid-40s that she started engaging with advocacy, and now has really latched on. And so really heartening to see so many of you here who are doing it this early in your career, and just think about all of the impact that you can have in your long illustrious career as a medical professional, as a physician. So just a couple of years ago, we started working with Dr. Harpreet Sui. She's a physician in Nevada, and like I mentioned, she had really not done a whole lot of advocacy, legislative advocacy, issue advocacy out in the world. But when we started working on, as an organization, a piece of legislation to establish a state-based public option in her state of Nevada, she sort of latched on and said, "Hey, this seems like a great cause for me to support, but I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before." And we were sort of very excited to have her on the team and get her trained up with all of the tools that she would need to talk to lawmakers, to go and do media, for us to connect her to media or get incoming and get them connected with her and make sure she has all the support she needed to be knowledgeable about the policy, but also sort of understand, hey, what are the stories and what are the messages that are most effective when you're talking to big, broad audiences or when you're talking to lawmakers. So she very quickly became sort of a champion for the Nevada public option. And essentially, it's a legislation that would establish a state-administered healthcare plan on the ACA marketplace, giving residents the option to choose a low-cost, high-quality healthcare plan as an alternative to the private market plans. The thought being, A, people would be able to get coverage much more cheaply, but B, you also start to drive down the costs of the private insurance marketplace plans who are trying to compete with the public option plan that is sort of taking up market share. We'll talk a little bit about sort of how that's going in a moment, because we're sort of just at the cusp of it. But here you can see Dr. Sui standing next to Governor Steve Sisolak, the former governor who signed the legislation, and just with the incredible leadership of Senator Cannizzaro and Governor Sisolak, the legislation passed, and we were on a path to expand coverage significantly across the state. Woohoo! Yay! But the fight wasn't over, as you might imagine, and Dr. Sui was sort of stepped up to the plate. After the legislation was passed, Governor Lombardo, Governor Sisolak's successor, that's a tough one, he was not as keen on this piece of legislation and sort of did everything he could to hold it up. But Dr. Sui kept fighting, and the physicians with whom we were working kept fighting and making sure the public knew exactly why there wasn't a cheaper health insurance alternative on the marketplace. When they were going to re-enroll, they heard all this stuff about the public option. Where is it? And really sort of laying the blame at the feet of this administration, the current administration. And in the end, after a lot of pushing, some paid advertising from us and some other partners and legislative advocacy days and sort of all of the things that it takes to win these fights, really excited to say that the Battle-Born state plans are now live on the marketplace in Nevada as of January 1st, 2026. Sort of initial reports is that things are going quite well. I don't have the enrollment numbers on me at the moment, but people were really astounded at how much uptake there was. And so I wanted to share that story because, like I said, Dr. Sui had not done any of this before, was sort of, of course, advocating for her patients in the exam room, but was called to go and do that work beyond the exam room. And found us and found this organized group of other physicians where she felt sort of emboldened and strengthened and was able to hone her skills and have an incredible impact on the care that's available in her state, and has sort of continued that work. She's now very involved with sort of politics in the state, and she's an advisor to a number of different candidates running in Nevada on healthcare issues, and so she's just really sort of taken that next step. And this is sort of the service that we intend to provide to folks, and hope to provide to all of you as you sort of move through that career. I want to take a quick moment to just talk a little bit about communications. I mentioned earlier we sort of built our organization around being very effective in earned media. And when I say earned media, that's essentially shorthand for getting individuals connected with reporters and pulling together media stunts to get TV cameras there with physicians in white coats, or taking incoming, but basically anything that you see in a newspaper or online print coverage or local TV, that's sort of all encompassed in earned media. But what is increasingly true, it's sort of always been the case, but as the media landscape that we exist in has become so fragmented and people's media diets are so different than they were even 5, 6 years ago, it really takes sort of a communication stack, as we call it, earned media, social media, and decentralized media, so podcasts, all of the things that are sort of growing in eyes and ears. In-person community engagement still incredibly important, and then the paid media piece as well, and having all of those pieces reinforcing the same message. And I added this little, I don't know if you're able to read it on your screen, it's maybe a little small, but one thing that is sort of so central to the core of the Committee to Protect Healthcare is ensuring that our messages are doing no harm, first and foremost. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But every time we are going out and either putting money behind a message or pitching a physician to the media, making sure that they are equipped with the very best messages that is based on research, that is based on sort of the most up-to-date polling, but then, of course, colored in with all of their experiences as physicians and sort of, placed in the context of what they're experiencing and what their patients are experiencing. So it's very authentic as it comes through. Sorry, trying to catch up here. Okay. So for years, we've, like I said, we've been doing this in earned media, and you see we've got a lot of faces on a lot of different media programs here, and really ensuring that when folks in our network speak, they are clear, they are grounded, and they are focused on patient impact, not necessarily their own profession. And so that's really core to the work that we do, is always making sure that it's in the context of what is best for the patient. Because that is what is most important to the folks whose ears these messages are landing on. And trust with the media isn't built overnight. It's built through consistency. That is true at both an individual level and an organizational level. And so being sure to be sort of hard-nosed about how often you're reaching out to the media, and they will sort of begin to see you as a trusted messenger. And then so important is both proactive and reactive communications. I've got some examples here, some from the height of the Medicaid fight, some from the ACA tax credit fights, but really having folks at the ready to respond when there's a break in the news or when there's a vote in Congress or whatever it may be, and getting these messages out there very quickly. So that's sort of the earned media piece that we work on, and have really taken over the past couple of years to put an increased focus on social media, decentralized media, sort of trying to meet people where they are. The landscape is changing faster than I ever hoped it would, but it's going to keep changing even more so. And so what we have really tried to do is to branch out and have people in the network creating more and more content online. I think this is an incredible opportunity for med students like yourselves, who have sort of, I don't want to make generalizations, but have had a phone in your pocket since middle school, are very familiar with, with sort of how all of this works. And so I really encourage all of you to start try to pushing yourselves out of your comfort zone, start to make content. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but every single bit helps. Every single bit sort of, falls on ears in a small pocket that can have an incredible difference in sort of in the aggregate. And then I mentioned community engagement events. We are consistently working. We are plugged in with a lot of state-based organizations who are not necessarily healthcare focused, but maybe are sort of just focused on the betterment of the community. And we are plugging physician voices into events all the time. These are incredibly important, both for garnering media attention, but then also just, if you are at a roundtable and you're at a community event, seeing someone in person and hearing it from their mouth can pretty easily cut through some of these maybe misinformation, disinformation that's landing on them from a phone that's starting to like seep in. It really has an effect to like pull them out of it. You sort of immediately become the last person in the room, and then it can really solidify in people's minds. And then there is, of course, a role in paid media. I want to just show a couple of ads that we have produced as an organization. One that is not featuring a physician, the other is featuring a physician, both of which were very, very effective in their own right. But just to see sort of some of the ways that the organized entity can get these messages out through paid media. So there's
Nearly 1 in 2 babies born in Michigan rely on Medicaid. So when Republicans threaten to cut Medicaid, mothers and children bear the burden. Democratic Senator Kevin Hertel knows that healthy babies are the future. That's why he's fighting to protect mothers and children. Call Senator Hertel and thank him for supporting Medicaid.
Great. Okay, so that's one that that tested quite well, and that was a situation where they were going through a budget negotiation shortly after HR 1, and the Republicans in the House were not particularly interested in figuring out how to backfill Medicaid. Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate were very interested in figuring out how to do that. And so we wanted to let this senator know that we appreciated the work that he was doing. He was sort of in the middle, one of the deciding votes on that budget on the Senate side, and so giving some reinforcement from this medical community. And then, oh no, okay, let's see if we can. Is this gonna play? Oh. It's such a good ad. Okay, we wish we could show it. It's not going to work, it seems. Oh, wait, maybe if I do it on this side.
In the emergency department, we see real-time consequences of people not having access to health care. Expansion of Medicaid in Wisconsin would mean less cases to the emergency department. It would prevent closures of hospitals in our communities, and most importantly, save lives. The majority of states in the country have expanded Medicaid with bipartisan support. Yet legislators in Wisconsin are blocking expansion of Medicaid. They're blocking the opportunity for our patients to have a healthier life.
Tell your legislator to save lives and pass Medicaid expansion.
Great. Okay. So all of these layered on top of one another can really make an impact. And understanding your audience, of course, is very important here as well. Are you talking to the public? Are you trying to break through to lawmakers? Those ads in particular were very much focused at the lawmakers and getting the folks, public support or public action, grassroots action to call their lawmakers and try to push them in a specific direction. I've talked a lot about sort of what we do at the Committee to Protect Healthcare. I'm sure you are sitting here and saying, what can I do? And where do I fit into this work as a medical student right now? And the answer is really everywhere. This work depends on distributed voices. And in that vein, I sort of want you all to walk away today with a better understanding of some of the best practices for advocacy and communications, so that you can begin to organize as part of AMSA or as part of your student body at wherever it is you may be, and start to put some of these into practice. But then also, if you choose, if you want to advocate in a certain way and not sure where the resources may be, we can always be a resource for some of that information as well, and help to put it into action. So I wanted to, the session here is a little, is some focus on how do we operate in a world that is so mired in disinformation and misinformation and a lot of different types of information. It is really important to understand the difference between, and I'm sure folks know this, but it's always a good refresher, the difference between misinformation and disinformation. Most importantly, I included propaganda here as well, because we are seeing a lot of that out of a lot of different places right now. But really, sort of as we are thinking about the communications landscape out in the world, the distinction between mis and disinformation is really important. Misinformation is just false or inaccurate information that gets to somebody. It's not malicious by any means. Oftentimes, this is sort of, we hear this from physicians all the time that work with us. Oh, and I apologize if there are questions in the chat, and I've been missing them, but we can jump back to them at the end. Patients that come into the exam room and say, I heard XYZ thing. Can you help me out? That's just misinformation. It may have started as disinformation. It may have started as malicious and wants this person to be questioning, but that is really, have a one-on-one conversation. It can be really useful. It's the disinformation that is really, really quite insidious, and is frankly organized online. There are vectors for disinformation that are committed solely to muddying up the waters and making people sort of question everything it is that they've known, and has in many ways gotten us to the point that we are, both in public health but also in a general sense. And so I mentioned this at the top. We'll sort of walk through. I want to talk specifically about dispelling disinformation and some of the best practices, because I think I know I have this impulse. There's an impulse to engage with disinformation at every turn and try to set the record straight. And we'll talk a little bit about sort of when is that the appropriate approach, and when do you maybe just move on and try to get a positive message out there in the world. So, like I said earlier, we are very committed to do no harm communications, and really remaining grounded in message research, and pairing that with sort of to ensure that there's minimum blowback. And so you may have a situation where you know something to be true, and you know the way to talk about it. You are very well versed in it, but if you are saying it in a confusing way, or you're talking about it at a 12th grade reading level, and someone feels like they don't understand what you're saying, and now they're sort of turned off to the expert who is talking about it, just because of the way that it was framed. And then avoiding harmful amplification. Just being really aware that, especially online, if you are seeing disinformation that is coming through, reposting it, retweeting it, or sharing it to your story or whatever it may be to rebut it is actually just feeding the algorithm and saying, hey, this is getting engagement. It's going to serve it to more and more people. And so one of the suggestions that we have is, if you are ever sort of trying to respond to something, want to have the context of what the claim was initially, take a screenshot, take a screen recording, but don't share that post outright. It just feeds the fire in a lot of ways. Next up is a little bit more on sort of the strategies for responding. So I think it is the first question should always be, should I respond? Not necessarily, do I respond? Again, engagement is oxygen. And so if it is a piece of disinformation that has very low visibility, sometimes the best move is to just move on and let it die quietly, or hope it dies quietly. You may look back a couple hours later and, oh boy, this has really taken off. And then maybe it deserves some response. But and when you do respond, the structure is really important. And so this is both goes for online communications. This goes for conversations in your life. It goes for advocacy. It goes for conversations with the media. Try to build a truth sandwich, is sort of how we think about it. The truth being the bread. So really, that analogy is always a little funky, but it is a truth sandwich. So instead of vaccines don't cause autism, try vaccines are one of the safest, most studied medical tools we have. There's been a lot of noise online suggesting otherwise, but decades of data show they prevent disease and save lives. And so you're kind of putting the false claim between things that, between the strong statements. And then so direct versus indirect responses. Not all responses are created equal. Sometimes you want to respond directly, but many times an indirect response is more powerful. And what we mean by that is sort of instead of amplifying a false narrative, you'd redirect attention to what is real, what is the truth. So if someone is pushing fear about Medicaid recipients being quote unquote undeserving or whatever, waste, fraud, and abuse, you don't repeat the smear. You tell the story of a child with asthma whose medication is covered because of Medicaid. You tell the story of the working parent who avoids bankruptcy because of the coverage that they get through these programs. And so the indirect responses sort of reduce the amplification risk and often build trust more effectively with the audience that you're trying to communicate with. And then, so stories in general beat statistics. They certainly go hand in hand. As medical students, I'm sure you are all thinking a lot about numbers, a lot about peer review, scientific research. But in the public debate, stories always beat statistics. That doesn't mean abandoning evidence. It means sort of translating it into things that really feel impactful in an individual's life. So, if in the case, or, we've seen the case where the ACA tax credits have expired and premiums skyrocketed, you can cite data from Kaiser Family Foundation, and you should, but always pair it with, I have patients, or I've heard from my attending physicians or whoever it is, who skip follow-up care because their premiums doubled and they could no longer afford the coverage. And now, this person with hypertension is at way increased risk of really adverse health effects because they're not coming in. So you are already storytellers in your own right, and that's sort of what you were working on. But so this should be no problem. But just keep some of these thoughts in your mind and grounded as you are doing advocacy out in the world. And then wanted to share just some basic tips for communicating in different mediums. So, we said that the media landscape is increasingly fragmented. Traditional media does still matter. When you're speaking with a reporter, lead with impact, avoid jargon, have one or two key messages you turn to repeatedly. So this little graphic here, you have your sort of core message, and then what does it say here? Expressions of our core message, but always coming back to that root. And they really, a lot of times these are complicated issues. Working hard to try to explain a policy or an issue in 20 seconds or less will be incredibly impactful because the more you're explaining, the quicker people are starting to tune out. And so really boil it down to the core message, the human example, and the bottom line takeaway. I don't have to tell you all that social media is sort of the main place that folks of our collective generation, I'm putting myself in your generation, I'm probably a little out of it, but us young whippersnappers, most folks are getting their news through vertical videos on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, now on YouTube Shorts, which is like apparently blowing up. Didn't know. So really think about it. What I would encourage you all. I think this is like one of the important takeaways. It probably feels weird. You're probably feeling weird about like posting videos on your personal accounts where like your family follows and like people from high school or undergrad or whatever it is, like still follow you. I would eschew with all of that concern and just start posting, because in the short term, the most impact you're going to have is on all those folks that are sort of in your network previously, and just changing their minds because they know you is actually one of the most important and impactful ways that you can start to engage in this work. So you boil it down to a few steps and take all the time you need when you're putting content like this together, but think through the message you want to convey, put together a few bullet points, and And then just start recording and record as many clips as you need until you feel comfortable with it. And then you can, slice and dice thereafter and get something out that you feel good about. But it is really important that all of us are using sort of whatever platform we have, big and small, to get the truth out there, because there is so much out there, that is seeping into people's minds. Um, Other option is to start creating graphics or, sharing posts on your story on Instagram Reels that just like rebut this information, obviously being mindful of some of the amplification stuff we talked about. But again, these folks in your personal networks, they need to hear it too. You might assume that they're hearing the same things as you are, but they often are not. And the sort of media diet is getting more and more unhealthy every single day. I have some, feel free to take a screenshot of this, just some like questions you might throw out to yourself as you're thinking about where would I even begin? I think one of the things that we often throw out to the physicians that we're working with when they're having trouble with this is just like start with why you became a physician and start talking about like how the current state of affairs is impacting your sort of idealized vision of providing care to folks, and oftentimes they'll sort of just like take that and run with it. But there are some others here that can be really helpful. And so thinking about why did you, however many years ago decide I want to go to med school, can really be sort of that jumping off point for you. And it's incredibly compelling. And so if you are doing this, of course, please feel free to tag us. I'll do a pitch for Danya here. Tag AMSA, tag sort of all of these other groups that have followings, because they can help to amplify it. And again, you're sort of feeding that algorithm. More and more engagement begets more and more engagement. Okay, so I'll try to wrap up very quickly here so we can have some time for questions, but just some key takeaways. Message matters, messenger matters, and consistency matters. It seems like a lot. I will say on behalf of the Committee to Protect Healthcare, again, on behalf of Danya and AMSA, we are here to help you all in this fight and be a resource to you all. It is just so important. And again, I'm excited to see so many people on this call this evening to get involved with this early. It will make sort of, I think, both your professional life that much easier, but also serves as an outlet for the frustration that I think we all feel in these times, and doing it along so many other folks who are like-minded and fighting for the same thing can be really rejuvenating, I think, for all aspects of your life. So with that, I'll say we are hosting a week of action at the end of next month in the lead up to No Kings. We're one of the No Kings sort of official partners. We're calling it Defending Care, Denying Crowns. More info that we'll be sharing around on that. We're hosting an organizing summit in Chicago in June. We should have some exciting information. I'll just preview it. We're trying to figure out a way to have some spots for medical students. If you're interested, keep an eye out. And then if you want to start organizing your community and don't know where to start, we've got a team of organizers who can give you tips, can give you materials, can give you some support in that respect. So just email that organizing@committeetoprotect.org. And then please do sign up for our newsletter as well. That's where you'll get all of the updates along the way. Oops. Actually, I will just stop my share then. There we go.
Yay, everyone. Round of applause. Dear friend, thank you so much for giving us such concrete strategies. That was really empowering, and having prompts and just having the overall building the confidence, that our voice truly matters in that space, irregardless of whether or not we are practicing, and that we actually have an angle to provide, I think is really comforting. Before I get into a question or two, I'd love to hear from the audience. Friends, are there things on your mind? I'm already getting excitement for the conference. So yay. Hope we have some good news soon. Please feel free to come off mute or place questions in the chat, and I'd be happy to read them aloud. I might start us off if that's okay, and then guys think of your questions. Okay, so Joel, I know something that we've been talking about together and something that we've been touching on throughout the week is, building confidence in the way that you've described, and I'll add my spotlight to this for the stream. Building confidence in these skills obviously takes practice, and in a time when visibility is, I mean, it's always frightening for medical students because of the things that we all know and that we've all mentioned throughout the week. But so without going into all of that naming, the clear message is visibility is frightening, but visibility is critical. Or as so many of us feel that are here at AMSA. We want to integrate our voices, but we know that there's risk involved. And we know that many of the physicians that you've trained have had to balance that same risk, though it's different because, of course, they're already practicing and they have, we're told once you're practicing and attending, you have a little bit more flexibility to trade that off, if you will. So wondering, kind of how maybe lessons you've learned from those physicians and how they've balanced that difficult decision, or how they've increased their own safety even through that visibility, things that maybe we can take away being earlier in our careers too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think so with the physicians with whom we work, I mean, we've been doing a lot of communications, a lot of high visibility work. I think we've had one situation in which a reporter was not respectful of the request of, hey, this person is not speaking on behalf of their employer. And they are speaking as an individual or as a representative of the Committee to Protect Healthcare. And we got it corrected really quickly, and then that was that. And that's in seven years of doing this work. So I will say, like, as far as thinking about the earned media landscape, reporters are very professional individuals and very respectful of those types of requests. And so I don't know that I can speak to concerns for medical students who are concerned about placement, or like some of these big questions that you have to hit along the way. I will say the medical profession on the whole, I don't know if they've been radicalized. I think that might be a little bit too strong of a word, but I think there is a sea change that is happening that we have seen sort of in the uptake of folks. But we have a big list of physicians, almost all of them in the United States. We have them appended to a modeling thing where we can see sort of how has ideology changed over time, and folks are sort of the profession does not look like it used to, and the profession is getting more Black, more brown, more and more women are joining as well. And so I think all of this to say, I can't make big promises about your vocal work not impacting something along the way, but I do think it is a much more friendly or understanding crowd than it was maybe 20 years ago, where advocacy might have been a little bit more of a risk. And again, doing work under the banner of an organization, either like AMSA or like the committee or whatever organization affiliation you have, does award you that sort of freedom to say, I'm not speaking on behalf of my institution. I am speaking as an individual. I just happen to be a med student, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. And also the skills that you're teaching us translate to, again, that shared confidence is like, if I know how questions might be asked to me or how I can frame responses, then that still guarantees us somewhere to begin, which I think is really important because, a lot of times we want to answer questions or, write, op-eds, but, having visibility again can be frightening. But that's really great. And also I'll plug this, and then I want to open space too again for anyone else before Joel leaves. Would it be, and this is something you can think on as well, do you think there are physicians within the committee that could potentially be like someone that one of us could reach out to and say, hey, how did your journey kind of start? And do you have tips for us at this level? What do you wish you had known, type of, dialogue?
Absolutely. I will, you know, I'm not scared to share this. Our board is so gung-ho about us creating a good relationship with AMSA in particular, but medical students sort of more broadly, because I think a lot of whom are physicians in their own right. I think they're like, we need more. We need more people who are doing this work, and it's the young people that they're looking to that are going to sort of carry the mantle when when they start to retire, whatever it is. So I think just in the few times that we've collaborated with them, so we've gotten such a great response from the physicians across our network as well, beyond our board and beyond our leadership. And so I think absolutely, if there's ever a time that someone's like, "Hey, I live in this area," or "Hey, I just got, I've just finished up whatever. My residency placement is here. I want to talk to a physician who does advocacy." We can connect you immediately, get you plugged in. They would be more than happy to have that conversation and shepherd you along.
Ah, thank you so much. That's
Mhm.
fantastic news. Everyone take note and make sure to reach out to me if that's something that you're interested in. Others, we still have a few moments. Other questions, reflections, please feel free. Anything else on our hearts? Well, I could ask you questions all day, Joel. I have. Oh, we have one. Okay, Armand says a few things we've touched on this week is facing pressure from institutions. I like how you touched on the notion of these thoughts are my own and not my institutions. That being said, do you have any safe introductory ways to try to approach other students in a way that makes them feel empowered to join in the fight?
Mm.
Thank you, Armand.
That is a great question. So I think there's correct me if I'm wrong. There's probably a camaraderie amongst medical students that you all are in sort of in a fight together that is med school. Very tough fight. I don't envy you all, but I commend you all. And so I think just to approach them and say, hey, I'm thinking about life after med school and what the healthcare landscape is going to look like. Like, just I'm trying to figure out ways to change this. I don't know, like some ways to just sort of start socializing the thought of like, hey, what would it mean to get organized on this front? Now, for folks who you sort of know are with you on the issues, I think you just give them a fiery speech and say, we gotta do this now. The time is now. It's now or never. But yeah, you'll have to take the temperature of who's who.
Another skill in and of itself. Thank you so much. Great question and beautiful reflections. Okay. I keep getting confused because, as many of you have heard me say over the course of the week, my phone and my computer are different times, and I've yet to fix that. So I realize, my friends, are there other lasting reflections, things you took away, things you'd like to share with Joel, anything at all? Yes, Jeff.
Just first of all, hi Joel. It's good to see you.
Hi, Jeff. Good to see you.
Can't wait to see you again in DC at some point soon.
Yes.
Just a general sort of quick comment, reflection, and to you, Joel, just maybe a question about this as well. It seems to me that in a period of time that followed the successful passage of the ACA, there was a bit of a sigh of relief that we could sort of like, we did something. And given the cumulative attacks against the ACA and the weakening that's happening right now, and all of these things, rollbacks on this, that, and the other thing, it feels to me like we really need to re-engage, or, well, I think we need to not begin to re-engage, but acknowledge that we really do need to accelerate the re-engagement in the conversation about universal healthcare. Incrementalism look at what incrementalism has got us,
Yep.
and look how quickly it's reversed.
Mhm.
So how do we shift our paradigm? How do we shift our framework of advocacy, the activism, the organizing, so that we're not just asking for the scraps anymore? Because we've been fighting for a long time, and frankly, in the more than half century since the civil rights era, I think we've learned a lot about this country, that it is not really movable in its current form. So how do we shift that? How do we shift it from accepting that incrementalism is the only way forward and rejecting that and saying, no, the whole thing needs to be changed?
Yeah. Oh, Jeff, what a question.
And it's already 1 after the hour, so good
No,
luck.
that's
Good luck answering that.
I got nothing but time, but I will not bore you with my diatribe about the broken state of American politics. So our North Star as an organization, I will say, is universal healthcare. We got a lot of folks who are in the network who come to us as former Republicans who are just repulsed by what's going on, and so we accept all folks of every stripe to come and advocate sort of at whatever level they hope to do. But our North Star is universal healthcare as an organization. I think it comes down to a couple of things. One, Jeff, you're exactly right. I mean, the post-ACA fight, a bunch of the organizations who were so vital to that kind of withered away or changed focus and didn't sort of, there was maybe not until the repeal and replace fight of 2017, people were like, oh my gosh, what? I didn't think that this would ever happen. And then you sort of had that again. It just keeps happening now. The Medicaid fights, and then people have to ramp back up. So I think the first thing is consistent organizing from just a fight, making sure we're not rolling back. Now, the broader question of how do we have a paradigm shift, basically, in the way that we think about healthcare in this country? How do we move away from the original sin of privatization in the first place? It's a huge obstacle. I think it starts with repealing Citizens United. Health insurance companies and hospitals and all of these folks that are profiting off of the system along the way are pumping huge amounts of money to muddy the waters on the healthcare debate. And so that's part of our charge and sort of getting funds out there to do paid media that combats that and starts to socialize like a new way of thinking about this. So that's first and foremost. The second is pushing on your lawmakers, particularly those lawmakers in like safe blue districts that aren't concerned about taking like, oh, the maximalist position, it's going to get me kicked out of my seat, yada yada. They sort of are always thinking about that first and foremost, and pushing them to support Medicare for all or universal health care, whatever it may be, a single payer. It doesn't necessarily have to be Bernie's Medicare for all, but some form of it, whatever they're comfortable doing, and having that pressure pushing up. Now, you're never going to get there if it's just the safe blue districts who are pushing this narrative, and all of the folks in the middle are sort of in these competitive districts on a 2-year or 6-year cycle. Aren't ponying up to get along with it. You need 60 votes in the Senate. You need what for? I'm trying to do the quick math. 200 and oh my gosh, I'm not going to 218 votes in the House. Sorry, and that is tough to get to, no matter what the issue is. Even like something as popular as like free stuffed animals for kids. It is a fight we are seeing, I think, and this is where it's so important to fight back against the disinformation. There is just anger about the system. We saw this with the way that the Republicans sort of responded to the ACA tax credits fight, where they were like, oh, why are we giving money to private insurance companies? Great. I mean, it's a great question. They came to the wrong conclusion. As we might have suspected, let's do HSAs, let's get money into people's pockets so that they can go pay the private insurance companies. It was just kind of absurd. But they touched on something that is really important, which is like across the spectrum, unless you are a private insurance CEO, you're mad at private insurance, or you're mad at the pharmaceutical companies, or you're mad at all of these folks that are profiting off of our pain. And so I think there is an opportunity right now to have, like, you could see a little bit of a sea change it's, I mean, again, it's tough with so much money that gets pumped into politics, and these folks sort of running Washington in a lot of ways. So I don't have a great answer for you, Jeff, but I think you're touching on something that's like central to the healthcare debate is like, yes, let's patch up all of the destruction to public health, to the ACA, to Medicaid, like get that patched up. But like, what is next? I'm looking to the leaders that, I mean, I think there's going to be a spirited debate about healthcare in the Democratic primary, as there seems to always be when a presidential comes up. And I'm hoping the right solution wins the day. And we sort of have a figurehead that is sort of getting an entire party around it, and maybe can bring some folks over from the other side that say, hey, actually, that's like universal healthcare is the way. I may not agree with you on XYZ issue, but then you can start to build a broad coalition for that issue. But it's hard. Yeah, it's a long fight.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel. It's a generational struggle.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your question, Jeff. And something that reminded me of when you said, they touched on something important, right? It reminds me how one of our, strategies can also be like finding the common ground, right?
Mhm.
There is usually it's somewhere, and then you're like, we went over here and that's not what we want. But like, if we can find that common ground, the thing that they care about, that we also care about, that can cross party lines and say like, this is a way that we can also combat, that disinformation or propaganda, and also just build some sort of alliance, and I think that's just a really important point that you made too. Yeah. Friends, other questions or reflections for Joel, who blocked off his whole evening for us? You're welcome. He showed me. Any others? Joel, it is always such an immense privilege to talk with you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for not only your generous, ability to always respond when we want, you to come speak in front of our students, but also friends. Joel has been an ally for us for really quite some time, and is always available for calls or meetings, and is answering our questions. So you might not have seen his face quite yet, but he has been behind the scenes greatly. I know a lot, and as I've been developing my ideology towards, this leadership year too. So thank you for being a trusted friend, mentor for all of us. And we hope to lead alongside you and to join you more and more at the committees. So we'll be looking forward to all that's ahead.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Danya, Jeff, Nikita, you all. Thank you for having me and letting me get some of that off my chest. It's it's good to it was a little bit of a therapy session for me too. So.
That was the goal. Thank you so much. It was for us
Appreciate it.
as well. Yes, you are a dear friend, and looking forward to chatting with you soon. And feel free to stay. Both you, Joel, and all of our friends here will be trickling into our final, for now, we have the monthly, so fear not, community building sessions where we'll unrecorded, unstreamed, time to just be together, process what we've been talking about this week, and be alongside one another. So thank you for tuning in all week, my friends, and that's a wrap on HEWA 2026. Okay, see you.